G'day, ZiggyD here, welcome back for some more Grim Dawn. In this video I want to give you guys a bit of a guide to my two-handed weapons soldier that I've been playing over the past few days. I started this character with the mindset of wanting to try the rad-ass new two-handed weapons that were added into the game in build 19 I think it was. And I also wanted at the same time to try out the new veteran difficulty as well. So I rolled this character from level 1 on veteran difficulty and pretty much picked up the first two-hander I could get my hands on. And ever since then, I've been absolutely smashing and wailing away on mobs and having a really good time. And in the end, I actually managed to come up with something that works pretty reasonably effective. I managed to get through Steps of Torment on my second attempt, and I pretty much farmed like most of the endgame pieces of content and endgame zones so far with pretty good success. And it's also been one of the more fun specs I've played so far in Grim Dawn as well. Oh, taking a bit of damage in here. We're currently in Hallowed Hill, which is one of the sort of endgame zones. You can see these guys are like level 37 and up, so level 39 Hellspawn there. These guys are all over leveled a bit for us, as is the case for most of these endgame areas. Here we go, we've got a champ one here. I'll use all my different abilities against this guy, and we'll use our ultimate Olerons, I think it's Olerons as well, to increase our damage dramatically, absolutely flogging the hero. So as you can see, it's quite a brutal and fun to play spec with a lot of impact, and I think a lot of people who are watching the stream said that, you know, melee looks really fun to play in this, and it is like you really feel kind of powerful. And I don't know, I don't usually enjoy melee all that much in these sorts of games, but I've thoroughly enjoyed playing this character and absolutely executing things with massive two-handed troll clubs and such. So, we'll go over my spec and the setup and, you know, my skills and some of the gearing and stuff like that. And those of you guys who don't have Grim Dawn can kind of give a bit of an idea of the ways that you can build characters in this game and some of the cool features of gearing and passives and stuff like that. And for those of you guys that do have some Grim Dawn, you can get maybe a build idea that might be fun to play. But this is in beta, of course, the game's still in beta, so everything here could change by launch in terms of building the character, but it should still give you guys a cool look at the game, hopefully. So, let's jump straight into it. Now, this character actually uses two main attacks. I can go open up the tree just here. I use the Cadence line, so I have 1 point into each of the Cadence lines, and Cadence is a basic soldier attack that can be used with both melee and ranged weapons, and every third hit is a more powerful hit, basically. It's free, it doesn't cost any mana. It's just a simple replacer for your normal left-click attack. So normally you'll be using a basic weapon attack. Cadence simply replaces that, so it's nice and easy to get. It's very powerful early on because it gives you a flat physical damage increase. You can see 42 extra physical damage there, only at level 2. But it also scales your weapon based on percentage of weapon damage as well, and that scales all damage types. So it works pretty effectively there, and also gives it a small AoE on every third attack. Now I can probably show this if I can find just one guy to attack here. This skill, just by itself without using any of my other skills. We'll go find something to slog, something to execute. Here we go. So you'll see the Cadence buff will come up here every now and then, so every third attack. So there we go, we have a Cadence buff up now, and I can go proc the Cadence on this guy, and you can see it hits a lot harder there. So two normal attacks and then Cadence. So it gives a kind of nice rhythm and feel to the soldier. I've used this skill in the past with both ranged and melee weapons, and it does give a nice sort of feeling and nice meaty feeling to the combat. But using two-handers, the drawback is that two-handers in this game have a very slow attack speed, as you can see. We have very slow on the attack speed there, and I don't have any attack speed scaling. So when I just stand here and attack with Cadence, you can see it's not particularly fast. It takes a while to get those attacks. You'll notice my guy will do a jumping attack every now and then. That's actually one of the other passive abilities. Now, the second attack I'm using is Blade Arc. Now, this one it's kind of like Cleave from Path of Exile. It's kind of a slash in a 280-degree arc, I believe it is. And it does a percentage of your weapon damage with a extra bleed damage on top of that, and a chance for knockdown. So this one I've actually invested 8 points, well, 9 points into total, so you can see it's at 9 out of 16. And basically that's where I wanted to stop investing into this, because every point up to this gives it like 5% increased weapon damage. So it starts at something like 20% weapon damage and goes all the way up to 90, but after that it starts to get less effective for points spent, and you can see that the next level only takes it up to 93 from 90% weapon damage. So I've taken it to 9 and then stopped right there. Some additive bleed damage is nice, and the knockdown is good, but mostly it's for the AoE that we use this, and getting it up to 90% weapon damage with the extra bleed on top means that the weapon damage is pretty effective. It's not less effective than it is if you only put 1 point into it. So that's why I've invested that way. But you can see the thing about Cleave is it's also quite a slow attack speed. Both of these skills are quite slow. However, Grim Dawn does feature an animation cancelling. It's a feature at the moment. I did speak to one of the devs, Madeira, and he said that they're not really sure whether they plan on removing the animation cancelling yet. That they don't have any plans to at the moment. So I don't know if this will continue to be in the game. But basically, slow attack speed, but I can alternate between the two to speed up my attack speed by something like 50%. So if I simply switch between them, you can see my character attacks a lot faster. So in between every blade arc, I'm using an attack of Cadence, and in between every Cadence, I'm using an attack of blade arc, and you see it pretty much doubles my speed right there. And the way I'm doing this is simply alternating clicks. So it's kind of fun. On one hand, you kind of feel like you're pretty active in combat. You feel like a berserker, your guy attacks faster if you attack faster with, alternating your clicks, and it feels pretty rad. And the DPS increase is pretty legit, and allows you to burst down things really fast, considering that the weapon scaling is only slightly better than the normal damage you deal with your weapon. You do a lot of damage because of the increased attack speed on a very hard-hitting weapon that usually has a slow attack speed. It allows you to actually take advantage of the slow attack speed to deal a lot of damage, and it feels pretty fast. The only drawback is it's pretty tiring on the old hand in long battles. So when you're in a long boss battle and you're alternating those clicks a lot, it can get a bit tiring. So that's the only drawback with that. Now here's some of the other abilities I use. I have Blitz, and I have essentially invested 1 point into Blitz and 1 point into Blindside. You'll notice that all of my skills are blue and have 2 out of 8 on a lot of these things. I've actually only invested 1 point into all of these. Just to clarify, I have this utility pack belt here that gives +1 to all skills, which I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I used 1 point in Blitz, which just gives us a movement skill, essentially a gap closer. That deals some extra damage and has knockdown as well. But it also, once you put 1 point into Blindside, gives you some additional damage, but it gives you an AoE debuff. It reduces target's defensive ability and reduces the damage they deal to you by 15%. So this is actually a fantastic initiator. So what I'll do is I'll simply, when I see a pack, I'll use Blitz on a group, so like these guys here, and you'll see the little broken sword icon goes above them, and then I'll start getting into the combat there. So that's a really nice initiator. It comes up every few seconds. You can use it to sort of close the gap. You can even use it as a sort of an escape if you need to get out of somewhere real quick. You can target a guy, and once the cooldown's down, you can actually sort of burst out of there. And the knockdown is pretty handy as well. So it essentially takes one of those targets out of the fight for a little while. Now the next skill I use is I've actually dual classed into, this is primarily a soldier. You can see I've spent pretty much most of my points in soldier, and I've maxed out soldier, but I did spend essentially 2 points into occultist. I accidentally spent some more, which I can't respec, but to get the Curse of Frailty here. Now this is another 1 point wonder. You can go to 1, so that's 1 point investment, and 2 points investment gives you Curse of Frailty. Now Curse of Frailty gives minus physical damage from the enemies, so they can hurt you less. It gives them a flat 50% movement speed debuff, which is pretty handy. And then, most importantly, it gives them minus physical damage resistance. And in this build, I'm scaling physical damage as much as possible, getting high physical damage weapons, and scaling physical damage through passives and my skills, as you've seen. So essentially what I do is I'll use something like, we'll find a pack up here, I'll use my gap closer, and then I'll curse these guys, and then simply start going ham. You'll see that they take a lot more damage, they also deal less damage to me, and they sort of move around slower, so that sort of helps keep them grouped up a little bit. You can also use it defensively if you need to get away from a dangerous pack. Cursing them will slow them down, and they won't be able to walk anywhere near as fast. You can see that zombie's extra slow, slower than usual. So let's go finish these guys off. Now the next ability I use is another debuff just here. It is Warcry, which is from the soldier tree. As you can see, I have Warcry is just here. This is another 1 point wonder. I put 1 point into Warcry and 1 point into its passive Break Morale. Now, let me. What I'll do is I'll initiate with the charge with Blitz. I'll Curse of Frailty, and then I'll use Warcry. There's essentially triple debuffing the mobs and then engaging in combat with them. And you can see things get pretty easy once you get all of those debuffs up. So the initial Warcry gives a crushing blow effect. It reduces enemies' health by 33%. This sometimes doesn't seem to have much of an effect, and other times it does. I don't know if there's some sort of inherent scaling in the effectiveness of crushing blow in in Grim Dawn. I haven't exactly fully understood the mechanics, but sometimes it's very effective in reducing the health of very high health targets. It has a chance of Terrify, which is not really that big a deal for this build because you're melee anyway, you kind of want them near you. So that's not a big deal. And that's leaving it at 1 point means it's only 8%, doesn't go off too often. But the 12% reduced target's damage means that they deal less damage to you. So it's a combination of the crushing blow and the reduced enemy damage. But what's really good is Break Morale, the passive for this, which reduces, it disrupts enemies' skills for 4.5 seconds. So that means that they can't use any like powerful spells or curses or abilities and things like that on you for 4.5 seconds, which is like the extent of combat. So that's fantastic. It also reduces their resistances, so if you happen to have any like elemental damage or something like that, which I actually think I have some fire on this club, it'll help you deal a little bit of extra damage there. No biggie, but mostly it's that skill disruption for 2 points. Pretty good stuff. Now, the next skill I use is actually from an item, and I highly recommend it, is Blood Drinker. This comes from the Hollowed Fang component, which are reasonably rare, but they're not super high level, so you'll get a few of these over the course of it. I think I actually have... looks like I don't have any Hollowed Fangs in my inventory at the moment. I've used it in the weapon. But putting the Hollowed Fang in your weapon gives you 10% leech, 10% attack damage converted to health, you can see there on the weapon, also with a 5% chance of 135 leech on top of that, but gives you the skill Blood Drinker, which when you activate Blood Drinker, gives you an 8-second duration of 25% additional health leech. So you deal 35% damage leech. You get 35% of your damage leached back to you in life every time you attack while under the effects of Blood Drinker, and then there's the 25% chance for a little bit of extra bleeding damage on the mobs too, which isn't a big deal. But essentially, this gives you a lot of sustain, and it is crucial for helping to manage your health over the course of time. So I use this as much as I can. Like, it has a relatively short cooldown. I think the cooldown is 30 seconds, so it's not too long. So essentially, I'll Blitz in, Curse of Frailty, Warcry, activate Blood Drinker, and start going ham. You can actually activate Blood Drinker without taking a pause, so you can be attacking and activate Blood Drinker while you're going. Then essentially, once my cooldowns are back up, I'll do the same thing. I'll just Curse, Warcry, and then once Blood Drinker comes back off in about 15 seconds, I'll reactivate it. And you can see my health when I attack goes up by quite a large amount. And when you like get crits out and stuff like that, you deal extra damage. And you can see without the use of potions and things like that, I can sustain pretty well as long as I'm doing a good job on those abilities. And this is kind of how I managed to get through Steps of Torment as well successfully. So works pretty nicely. Now, the next thing I have is one of the ultimate abilities from Soldier class, Oleron's Rage. This gives extra speed, which is not a big deal for this class, but it does give a lot of extra offensive ability, which means you crit a lot harder, so you go from like 1.5 crits to like 2 and 2.5 crits, and it also gives you additional damage on top of that. Another 1 point wonder, putting 1 point into this is pretty damn effective. It does have a long cooldown, but when you're in a bit of a dangerous situation or when you're trying to burst down a boss real quick, activating Oleron's Rage, also combining with Blood Drinker, gives you more leech, so more survivability. And then combined with all of the other debuffs, you'll deal a lot of damage. Let me go wander over this way, and we'll see if I can find something. Oh, we got a chest. Any good drops? Just some iron bits, nothing too good. Let's see if we can go find a pack. Here's a hero right here, perfect. So I'll Blitz in, Curse of Frailty, Warcry, I'll activate Oleron's Rage and Leech, and we'll start attacking. You can see I'll burst him down really quickly. There we go. Corrupt, he's a defender too, so he's actually got a defense aura, making him harder to kill. But absolutely burst down in just a few seconds there. And I can do way better in terms of weapon at the moment as well. I have a very suboptimal weapon for my class at this point, and yet I still am able to do a lot of damage because of all this debuffing and damage boosting action going on. So next thing I use is Field Command, which comes from the Soldier just here. So put 1 point into Field Command's pretty nice, and you can actually put multiple points into its follow-up Squad Tactics. Field Command gives a small amount of offensive defensive ability, not a big deal. It does give you some armor scaling, which is pretty nice on this character because I like to stack very high armor gear if I can. But the most important one is Squad Tactics, the follow-up, which then gives that an additional total damage scaling. Total damage scaling is fantastic. At rank 3 here out of 12, I've got 20% total damage, so if you have any spare points, you can sink them into here. Probably if I was able to respec these 4 points from a cultist, I'd probably put them into Squad Tactics, because this is always up. It actually has no cost either. Like, I don't know why it has no cost. You can essentially put 1 point into each and activate it, and there's no drawback to that apart from the 2 passive points. So it's definitely a good one to get. You can see I have the effect up right now. I can disable it, and you can see when I do re-enable it, so this one just here, and you'll see that it won't actually, I can fully regenerate my energy here, and you see it won't actually reserve any energy. It doesn't have any energy costs associated with it. DPS goes up from 530 to 566, so a nice little boost there. Also an armor rating boost, offensive, defensive boost, very solid all-round sort of thing to run, and no energy reserve, so there's no cost to it. It's a no-brainer. Take that skill. It's fantastic. Now, the really important ones to sort of get into, I put like 1 or 2 points into Menhir's Will, and then I max out military conditioning, gives a lot of extra physique and health, which is very good for giving you a lot of sustain and defensive ability on this sort of character. 2 hands means you're not able to use a shield or anything like that, so you need to kind of make your character naturally tanky, and that's the one I've maxed out there. I've also maxed out Decorated Soldier, which gives us a huge boost in physical damage, fantastic, and I've put a lot of points into Scars of Battle, which is mostly for the stun duration and the freeze duration, though the armor absorption is also very powerful. It increases the effectiveness of the armor you do have. Now you'll notice I've put points into a lot of things though, so things like Markovians, Zolhans, you know, I've put points into all of these things that I can. The only ones I haven't put points into are very shield-oriented ones like Veterancy and Overguard, and Counter-Strike, which I didn't feel too useful, and Bulwark is not useful for this build either, as it's shield-based. The reason I've done this is I'm using the item here, Physics Utility Pack. Firstly, 1 point wonders throughout the passive tree, pretty good, so a lot of those passives are really good, even with just 1 point. But this item here gives 1+ to all skills, which makes skills, it gets more effective the more skills you have, basically. So by putting 1 point into everything here, I'm getting something like 13 or 14 or 15 extra skills from this belt here, so very, very effective. Now in terms of character speccing on my attributes, I sunk probably 75% of my points into physique, and then a few points into cunning just to give me a bit of extra damage and a bit of extra offensive ability. So you can see all the things in here I have a 100% chance to hit just from the offensive ability from 300 something cunning, so it works pretty well, and physique gives us all the toughness we need. You can see defensive ability chance to be hit's pretty low, but overall we get pretty tanky, and with the leech and stuff like that makes up for any damage we actually do take. Now let's look at gearing. The weapon I recommend for this is very high physical damage. My current weapon is not optimal. It is fire damage, physique, and health. It's an okay weapon in its own right, but it's not very high physical damage. I do have a slightly better example to show for you guys. However, as a base weapon type, it's quite good. You can see countless zombies are raising here at the moment. But you can see this is 19 to 240 physical damage. We have a lot of physical damage scaling throughout passives and everything like that on this character. So trying to get very high physical damage two-hander if you can. There's a lot of the different two-handers are good, but just try and get the highest tier one you can. And the Bone Crusher is a really nice base. I farmed this from the Troll at the end, in the end zone of Act 2. So you can farm the Trolls there for good weapons, hoping to get a well-rolled one. Now, the optimal stats to get on your weapon, though, are increased physical damage, so a percentage increased physical damage, and then a flat physical damage. I have one that's slightly better here, but is not a very good base, is the Alchemos Scythe. It has lower base physical damage, you can see 16 to 125, but the 36 to 89 physical damage is fantastic, so that's not too bad. You can farm this from the boss at the end of Steps of Torment. But if I could get a club like this with that physical damage roll on it, I'd be a very happy guy. Now, any other gear that you can get physical damage is going to be on nice, but I recommend a few other things. Getting some stun duration. I'm using Templar Headguard, which has reduced stun duration, and I'm also starting to put leathery hide components in it, which also reduces my stun duration. With passives and that, I'm already up to 69%, and that's pretty crucial. Getting CC reduction is very important on a melee character in this game if you want some good survivability. You don't want to get chain stunned, you don't want to get chain frozen. So on the same token, I'm also using Frozen Hearts in the ring here to increase my freeze duration, and in addition to the freeze duration from Scars of Battle, helps me avoid getting chain frozen a decent amount. I think I have... if we go all the way up here, freeze resist is up to 34% now, but I could do with a lot more than that. Other than that, you want to go for very high armor wherever you can, so a lot of my gear has pretty high armor ratings on it, and one of, like my chest here definitely needs an upgrade, so try and go for heavy armor wherever you can. You can see most of the ones I am running are actually heavy armor, unless they're a decent one anyway. In terms of the rune, you can craft Calamity right from the outset. Gives physical damage and an increased chance of extra physical damage on top of that, in addition to some offensive ability and stuff like that. Calamity, the proc, 5% chance on attack. You may have seen some Molten Balls proc out. Actually gives a pretty nice extra AoE effect too. So that's pretty handy, but it's a nice early one that you can craft from the new crafter, and is nice and solid to get. I'm also using the Ranger's badge there, which gives total damage and health and things like that. Attack speed's not too important, but just try and get whatever phys damage scaling you can. Defensive ability and high armor, basically. That's pretty much it. I can kind of mouse over very quickly each of the different slots for you guys to check out. This was a physical damage chest, that's why I'm still using it. It gave me a nice DPS boost, but could definitely be upgraded. The Swamp Dwellers are pretty good. Templars get Head Garter, I'm very happy with. The Imposing Platinum Band gives extra phys damage and some physique. Any physique scaling is very good, because percentage scaling on a very high base amount of physique gives a lot of extra physique. That gives 32 physique right there. So this one here is also total damage and physical damage on top of that, in addition to physique and physique scaling. Pretty nice. We've got some basic health and stuff like that. Not a particularly good amulet. Any health scaling is quite good as well if you can get a hold of that. We've got some physique there. Armor absorption is very powerful, so that's why I'm using these shoulders. When you have high armor, also increasing your armor absorption gets very effective. And these gloves aren't particularly good. I'm looking for better gloves. The Stonewall Groundbreakers are pretty good though. Extra physique, some extra resistance, and reduced stun duration, and things like that. The Physics utility pack is perfect for this build. It's like a best in slot because of the amount of points that you invest in a bunch of different skills on this character. So anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed playing this class, and next time there's a major build update in Grim Dawn, I'll definitely be checking the game out again. So stick around for it. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.